Good day everyone. For today's lesson, we will be discussing about tissues. And for our objective, we will be able to classify different cell types of plant and animal tissues and specify the functions of each. Regarding the levels of biological organization, I already discussed that it all started from an atom, which later on forms into molecules, which proceeded into the formation of a functional cell, which is the basic unit of life. Groups of cells eventually become tissues, tissues into organs, organs into organ system, until such time there is a functional living organisms working together, interacting in their natural environment, that is within the ecosystem, which is part of the biosphere. Moving forward, let's try to define the differences between the structure and the function. Talking about structure, it determines the function wherein it is made up of different parts, okay? Different types of cells wherein they are arranged accordingly to perform a specific function. So function will always be dependent to the structure, okay? Just like the heart, as what is shown here in our illustration, that heart is made up of muscle tissues, made up of several blood components or blood vessels as well, which allows it to pump blood all throughout the body. So the structure is designed to pump blood. The structure is designed to function in pumping blood all throughout the body. Moving forward, here we have the definition of tissue in general regarding with animal tissues or plant tissues. Talking about tissue, these are a group of cells with a common structure and a function, allowing it to perform particular duty. Different types of tissues have different functions, okay? Simply because they have different structures as well, okay? It all depends upon the structure wherein it defines its function, okay? Just like here in our stomach, we have several types of tissues here: the epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue. So as what you noticed, epithelial tissue is designed for lining, okay, which protects the organ, transport materials, secretion of enzymes and other hormones, and also the absorption of nutrients, okay? Moving forward, we have the connective tissue, okay? So it talks about support, wherein it needs to be durable as it is frequently exposed to stress, okay? We also have the muscle tissue. Its main function is for movement, which is dictated by the nervous system, either in the involuntary aspect or the voluntary aspect. Moving forward, we have the nervous tissue, okay, which dictates everything, sending information to that organ, allowing it to perform a specific function, which controls the entirety of our body. So, tissue in general are groups of cells that are the same, wherein they also function the same. In animal tissues, cells in a multicellular organism are arranged into groups that function collectively as tissues. These tissues perform the same and eventually become into an organ, okay? These organs tend to integrate with one another, supporting one another, giving rise to the organ system, which will now support the whole organism. So the organ system makes an organism alive, as it makes use of its nutrients from the surroundings, resources from the surroundings, gaseous components from the surroundings, and process it through cellular respiration, through metabolism, enabling the organism to survive by obtaining its needs from its environment. So, for animal tissues, there are generally four classifications. These are the connective tissues, epithelial tissues, muscle tissues, and the nervous tissues. First, let's go with epithelial tissues. Under epithelial tissues, it lines or protects the organs in the body, covering the surface of the internal and external component of the organs. Epithelial tissues are categorized into different types: the simple epithelium and the stratified epithelium. Under simple epithelium, there are subtypes. These are the simple squamous epithelium, simple cuboidal epithelium, simple columnar epithelium, and the pseudo-stratified epithelium. For the stratified epithelium, there are subtypes and there are subspecializations. For the subtypes, we have the stratified squamous epithelium, stratified cuboidal epithelium, stratified columnar epithelium, and for its specializations, we have the keratinized epithelium and the transitional epithelium. Before we will discuss in detail what are these types, let's have the terminologies on what simple means, on what stratified means, on what epithelium means, okay, on what squamous means, okay. So, moving forward, for our terminologies referring to layers, we have simple, which mean one layer, okay. For the stratified, it's more than one layer. Okay, let's say for instance, these are the layers of the cells. Okay, it's usually made up of 2 or more layers. Let's say in this case, we have at least 4 layers. Okay, for our example. Next, we have the pseudo-stratified epithelial tissue. For the pseudo-stratified tissue, pseudo, which means false, okay, appearing to be more than one layer, but in reality it's really just a single layer, okay. And you will notice that the arrangement of its nucleus is uneven, okay. Some are in favor near the bottom region of the cell, some are arranged at the topmost region of the cell. You will notice this one because it will give you an irregular arrangement of its nucleus, giving its false appearance, giving its pseudo appearance. Okay, so we have the pseudo-stratified epithelium, and one thing you can easily identify the pseudo-stratified epithelial tissue is that it is ciliated, having hair-like projections called cilia. Moving forward, we have the shapes, okay? Terms referring to cell shapes, okay? When we talk about squamous, it means flat. When we talk about cuboidal, it means a cube-like shape. Its length or its height is the same to its width, okay? Its length is the same to its width, okay? Moving forward, we have the columnar, okay? It's quite an elongated projection of the cell having a rectangular shape. And for the transitional, wherein cells can change in shape depending on its content, depending on its environment as well, okay? just like the cells in our urinary bladder. It is capable of expanding as it holds large volumes of urine. So, to lessen the tension, lessen the expansion, we need to excrete our excess urine simply because as it might damage the cells and it might damage the sphincters holding our urine. Okay, so once we feel that we are about to excrete our urine, then let's um, take some time to excuse ourselves and do what's best, okay, in eliminating those waste materials. Okay, moving forward, here we have the combination of terms talking about layers, talking about shapes. Okay, so when you talk about simple and we combine it with squamous, so we have simple squamous, it means one layered tissue having flat cells. Okay, simple squamous, remember? Just like this one. Simple squamous. It's a single layered tissue or single layered cells having flat cells. Okay, so we have the simple squamous. Next, we have the stratified. Stratified squamous. Okay, how about let's have stratified cuboidal. Okay, stratified cuboidal. So talking about stratified cuboidal, the word itself says that it contains two or more layers. Okay, it means more than one layer, man. So we have two or more layers. So stratified cuboidal. Okay, so we have, let's say for instance, we have stratified cuboidal epithelium. So its appearance will look like this one, having a cube cells which are grouped together, having more than one layer. So we have stratified cuboidal epithelium. Let's try to find out how many layers it possesses. So we have 1, 2, 3 layers of cube-like cells grouped together performing similar functions. Okay, so that's an example of how we use the terminologies when it comes to layers and shapes. Okay, so now you know what simple means, stratified and pseudo-stratified. For shapes as well, you know already what squamous, cuboidal, columnar, and transitional means. Okay, moving forward, let's have the detailed explanation on what simple epithelium does to our body and what stratified epithelium does to our body. Okay, moving forward, regarding with the types of simple epithelium, it possesses 4 types. Okay, it contains 4 types. Okay, so simple epithelium in general consists of single layered cells where absorption, secretion, and filtration is their specialization. Okay, allowing them to exchange molecules because of their structure, which are very thin. Okay, wherein it looks like this one, having only a single layered group of cells lining up together, usually covering the organ, either on the internal portion or the external portion. Moving forward, we have the types of simple epithelium. Here we have the squamous, cuboidal, columnar, and the pseudo-stratified. Let's go first with squamous. Talking about squamous, they are usually flat in shape, from the word itself, squamous. Simple, having only a single layer. Okay, that's why it's called as simple squamous. So they are arranged in a single layer enough to form a membrane that compounds can move through via passive diffusion. When we say passive diffusion, it doesn't require energy to move or to allow the entry of a certain material, just like the gaseous components in the alveoli, okay, of the lungs. Good example of this one is the alveoli of the lungs, because as we inhale, the air passes from the nasal cavity in our upper respiratory tract down to the bronchi, into the lungs, spreading into the alveoli. And in the alveoli, there are blood which continuously passes through the endpoints of the alveoli. Okay? And blood harnesses the available oxygen and disposes the unneeded carbon dioxide. So there is an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the alveoli, wherein we can successfully inhale air and exhale carbon dioxide because of the thin lining of the simple squamous. Okay. Also, they are found in the walls of capillaries, linings of the pericardium, and the linings of the alveoli. So, good example there is the alveoli, because there is an active exchange of molecules. Moving forward, simple squamous looks like this one, okay? Having only a very thin like structure, capable of exchanging materials through passive diffusion. Okay, sorry. Moving forward, we have the simple cuboidal epithelium. When we talk about simple cuboidal, cube-like structure, they are as tall as they are wide. Okay? So, single layer from the word simple. Okay? Their main function is for secretion and absorption. Okay? Secretion. They also secrete materials in our kidneys, pancreas, and salivary glands. So, kidneys secrete ions which will form urine later on. For pancreas, they usually secrete insulin material, wherein it is capable of it is an enzyme capable of digesting or eliminating the blood sugar, or yes, lessening the sugar level in our blood. For salivary glands, they usually function for secreting enzymes such as salivary amylase, wherein it is capable of digesting simple sugars. Okay. Now, so simple cuboidal cell or epithelial tissue is made for secretion and absorption of molecules. In the kidneys, there is also the recycling of useful water, wherein it is still capable of being used by the body. Okay, so there is secretion and absorption happening. Moving forward, simple cuboidal epithelial tissue looks like this one, having a cube-like structure. When you look at this one, it's a square-like structure, and it follows a cube-like shape, okay, wherein it appears to be like this. Okay, it's not that perfect, but it somehow looks like this one. Okay, simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. Moving forward, we have the simple columnar. These are tall tissues closely packed together, aligned in a row. They are found in areas with high secretory function such as the walls of the stomach, wherein they are capable of producing pepsin, which is capable of digesting proteins, or the absorptive areas as in the small intestine, which are the projections of the microvilli, wherein it is capable of absorbing nutrients, okay, which the cells need. The cilia, found almost exclusively in the female reproductive tract, also contains simple columnar epithelial tissue. Okay, so they usually excrete materials which keeps the female reproductive tract clean and prevent infection from invading to those particular region. Moving forward, here we have the pseudostratified epithelial tissue. So pseudostratified epithelial tissue is a simple columnar epithelial cell, meaning to say its structure is having an elongated structure, tall structure, but its arrangement is quite irregular, as the nucleus are arranged in an irregular fashion. Now, this provides a misleading appearance or misleading impression, which gives the word pseudo. Okay, it's a false multi-layered tissue. Okay, diba stratified is meant as more than one layer, so it's a false multi-layered epithelial cell, but in reality it's somehow closely related to simple columnar epithelial cells, but it's more on having unique appearance. That's why they tend to categorize it as different type of simple simple squamous epithelium. Okay, now they possess hair-like extensions called cilia. Okay, they are usually found in the airways, such as in our nose, in our nasal cavity, and in our bronchus. Okay, in our bronchi. Okay, allowing it to sweep the dust particles or the dirt particles or the foreign materials away from our away from our respiratory tract. Okay, again, away from our respiratory tract. Okay, that's why we have mucus secretions in our nose. That's why we have booger in our nose, because our nasal cavity is continuously cleaning the linings of our respiratory tract. Now, in our reproductive system, there are also cilia found in our reproductive system. Moreover, in the female reproductive system, also from the ovary to the fallopian tube to the uterus, there is a continuous rhythmic movement of cilia, allowing it to allowing the ovum to travel from the ovary to the fallopian tube to the uterus. If it is not fertilized, then it doesn't get implanted in the womb, but rather it goes out to the birth canal away from the female reproductive organ in a form of menstruation. Okay, so cilia functions in propelling the ovum to the uterus. If it doesn't get fertilized, it doesn't get implanted, then it will continuously go outside from the female reproductive system. So those are the different types of simple squamous, simple epithelium. We have the simple squamous, simple cuboidal, simple columnar, and the pseudo stratified. Okay, so these are the different types of simple epithelium. Moving forward, we have the stratified epithelium. Okay, for the stratified epithelium, these are usually multi-layered. Okay, hence the word stratified. Okay, which differs from simple epithelium by being multi-layered. Their function is mainly for support to withstand mechanical or chemical stress, which protects the linings of the organ, and also they are frequently involved in keeping the organ well lubricated, well moistened, allowing it to um, reduce the friction happening in these particular organs, okay, as they need to be durable to protect the organs. Okay, moving forward, we have the different types of the stratified epithelium. So we have the squamous, cuboidal, and the columnar, and its specializations keratinized and transitional. Stratified epithelium looks like this one, having a multi-layered appearance, having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers, as shown in the illustration. Now, the types of stratified epithelium, we have the squamous. Stratified squamous epithelium is a thick membrane composed of several layers. Okay? It protects underlying tissues in areas subjected to abrasion, such as in the esophagus, mouth, and vagina, and also in the epidermis of the skin. Okay, so let's talk about the non-keratinized squamous epithelium. So here we have a moist lining, okay, which lubricates the linings, lessening the friction as much as possible. So in the esophagus and mouth, there is a continuous secretion of saliva, okay. These usually coats the linings of the mouth and the esophagus, wherein it traps dirt, it allows us to moisten our food, and also for the easy swallowing of our food, of course, after we chew it. Next, also, in the vagina, there is a continuous secretion wherein it protects, keeping the organ clean, and also during sexual intercourse, there is also a lubrication which is secreted by the certain glands of the vagina, lessening the friction during the intercourse. Okay. Now, for the lining, we have the non-keratinized. These are usually moist linings made up of durable tissues. Okay. For the keratinized, we have the epidermis of the skin. I want you to take note that there are different forms of the keratinized cell. But for this example, let's talk about the skin having a dry membrane wherein it coats the deeper portion of the skin. So good example here is the keratin, which are made up of dead cells. Okay, protecting the inner layer. Okay, preventing pathogen from directly entering our system. So it's important to keep this area dry simply because microorganisms hate dry environments as they cannot thrive properly. Okay, moving forward, here we have the appearance of the stratified squamous epithelium, having a flat cells grouped into several layers. Okay, so that's what stratified squamous epithelium looks like. Moving forward, here we have the stratified cuboidal epithelium. Okay, they are usually found in our sweat glands, salivary glands, and mammary glands. Okay, they secrete materials specific to particular organ. Okay, sweat glands, they produce salt material, wastewater material, urea. Salivary glands, okay, they produce salivary amylase. Okay, mammary glands, they produce milk for the female mammalian organism. Okay, so these secretions perform different functions. Okay, so for the cuboidal epithelium, stratified cuboidal epithelium, its main function is for secretion and for protection as well. Okay, wherein it looks like this one. Okay, so here we have the cuboidal structure of our stratified cuboidal epithelium. Moving forward, we have the next type, the stratified columnar epithelium. Okay, so they are usually found in the male urethra and the ducts of some glands. They usually secrete materials and protects the urethra as well, protects the male organ as well. So in the male urethra, there is also a lubricating system, okay, which is useful during sexual intercourse, which also lessens the friction that might damage the tissues or the cells. Okay, so it secretes lubricating materials in protecting the linings of the tissues or the cells. Okay, so that's a columnar structure there, as what you noticed, having the tall shaped cells, elongated appearance, okay, having a rectangular structure. Okay, these are the cells under stratified columnar epithelium. Moving forward, here we have the specializations. Okay, talking about the specializations, so here we have the keratinized and the non-keratinized. Okay, for the keratinized epithelia, these are the most apical layers. When we say apical, it's the most exterior layer of cells, which are usually dead and lose their nucleus and cytoplasm. They are very tough because they are made up of keratin structure, making it waterproof. Okay, they are very abundant in our skin. Okay, if there are infections happening, or if there are possible bacteria clinging in our dead cells, as we take a bath or as we clean ourselves or as we move, those dead cells will just peel off. Okay, as it peels off from our skin, the bacteria clinging to that keratin or dead cell will be peeled off together with a dead cell. Okay, so that's one part of the protective mechanism of the stratified epithelium. Okay, even though it's dead, but it still blocks the entry of the bacteria from directly penetrating our system. Okay, next we have the non-keratinized. Usually these are the moist stratified epithelium found in the linings of the esophagus. Okay, they are very useful, especially when talking, when eating, what else? Okay, when trapping dirt materials, there is a function to why it's moist, to why it's some sort of wrapped in salivary um, amylase or moisture as it traps dirt, as it traps possible pathogen. Okay, so these are the different types of stratified epithelium. Okay, for the non-keratinized and the keratinized, they have um, distinction. When we say keratinized, let's talk about dead cells, which are usually dry. Okay, as they lose their nucleus, they're already dead, making them dry. For the non-keratinized, just remember there is always moisture. Of course, they are made up of live cells. Okay? So, keratinized epithelia, as what I shown you earlier, that it looks like this one, kinesia. Okay? These are the keratinized cells. Okay? Dead cells that are already starting to peel off from the skin. Okay? So, here. Okay? These are usually dead cells. Moving forward, we have the transitional epithelia. Okay, so when you talk about transitional epithelia, it has the capacity to stretch. Okay, because it is made up of cuboidal or columnar tissues. Now, when the tissue is not stretched, they are found in tissues that stretch, and it can appear to be stratified cuboidal when the tissue is not stretched, or stratified squamous when the organ is distended. Okay, so when we say distended, it's on its original size, no much volume inside it. Okay, meaning it tends to contract pa. By the time it stretches, the cells will elongate, having a cuboidal or columnar appearance. Okay, because transitional epithelia is a stretchable tissue. Okay, so transitional epithelia, sometimes called the urothelium, since it is almost exclusively found in the bladder, ureters, and urethra. Okay, so let's talk about urinary bladder. So as you notice, as we hold our urine, it somehow gets filled with some urine material. Then when we try to push our bladder or the area near the bladder, it's usually hard as it is filled with urine that we need to excrete it as soon as possible. Okay, so it is designed to be stretchable because it needs to hold volume of materials. If it is not stretchable, then it could easily break. It could easily be torn apart, and there will be damaged components. Okay, if it is not stretchable. Okay, so it plays a special function. Okay, so that's it for transitional epithelia, wherein it looks like this one. Okay, so on the original position here, image below, this is image A, and this is image B. Okay, so as what you noticed, for A, it is on its contracted position. By the time it is filled with materials and it needs to accommodate those volume of materials, it needs to be stretched, having this type of appearance. Okay, it tends to get stretched, and it becomes thinner and thinner as it's stretched apart. Okay, So transitional epithelial looks like this one. Moving forward, let's now proceed to another type of tissue. So here we have connective tissues. So when you talk about connective tissues, they usually link muscle to bone, bone to bone, or muscle to muscle. Okay? So for the connective tissues, the ligaments and tendons that you often encounter while eating chicken legs are examples of connective tissues. Okay? They are usually found in at the tip of the drumstick. Okay? Chicken legs ba? Drumstick. Okay? They are usually linking bone to bone or bone to muscle. Okay? So connective tissues connect and bind parts together just like the Achilles tendons found in your legs. Okay? Tendons usually bind muscle to a bone while ligaments connect bone to bone. Okay? So tendons, we have muscle to bone, ligaments, bone to bone. Remember that one. So connective tissues can be elastin fiber, fibroblast, or collagen fiber. They are of different types. So let's tackle them each. Let's tackle them one by one. Okay? So for the types of connective tissues, we have the collagenous connective tissue, reticular connective tissue, and the elastic connective tissue. Collagenous tissue is made up of type 1 collagen, which are dense, regular connective tissues in the tendons, allowing loose connective tissues in the fascia to be linked together. Okay? These are usually, when we say fascia, these are bundles of tissues in our body which is frequently exposed to stress, which is frequently exposed to friction. Okay, so here we have collagenous tissues, okay, in our fascia. Next, we have the dense irregular connective tissues. Okay, so these are the tissues which are directly attached to the bone. Okay, so there are some components in our bone wherein it is coated with connective tissue, just like in the periosteum. Okay, moving forward, collagenous connective tissue can be seen in the following areas. Okay, just like this one, the cartilage. Okay, remember, as you eat the drumstick, there are some crunchy portion, but it's usually tasteless. Okay, of the chicken drumstick. Okay, so it's what we call as cartilage. Collagen is also found in our nails, bones, hair, and in our skin. Okay, so we have the derma. We're in. The degradation of collagen in our skin leads to wrinkling. Okay, so as what you noticed, older people usually intake collagen plus vitamin D, okay, to strengthen their muscles and also to allow a younger looking skin. Okay, that's because of the collagen. So the degradation of it allows us to age, allows our skin to wrinkle. So here we have the different components or the different possible locations of collagen in our body. Moving forward, collagen fibers looks like this one. Okay, here. These are usually the fibers, the curved lines which links the muscles together, which links the skin together. Okay, under regular dense connective tissue. Okay, in the irregular dense connective tissue, as what you noticed, it doesn't usually follow a pattern. Okay, there are linings there, there are fiber bundles there, but it is arranged in an irregular fashion, unlike this one. Okay, so the pattern is quite uniform, unlike this one, the irregular dense connective tissue. So in reality, it looks like this one. Okay, so we have the collagen fiber bundles, these brown components linking muscles together, linking skin together. Okay, we also have the nuclei. The nuclei or the nucleus in a cell dictates what is happening in the cell. Okay, here, as what you noticed in our regular connective tissue, the arrangement is in a uniform pattern. Okay, having this appearance separates regular dense connective tissue and the irregular dense connective tissues. Okay, so these are the types of collagenous connective tissue. Okay, remember we have type 1 collagen. Next, we have the reticular connective tissue made up of type 3 collagen, which is a protein found in bones and cartilage, commonly found as a supporting framework of the hematopoietic and lymphoid organs. Also in the adipose tissues, basal lamina, and the stroma of granular organs. So when we say hematopoietic cells, these are usually in our bones or in our bone marrow, which continuously produces new blood cells. Okay? So our hematopoietic organs are the ones responsible in producing new blood cells. Okay? Which keeps our blood new because it will only last for up to 120 days. Okay, that's the lifespan of our blood cell. Okay, there is a continuous production as our blood ages after 120 days. Okay, so we have our lymphoid organs in our lymph nodes. We have our adipose tissues here. These are the storage of fat components in our body. Okay, so adipose tissue looks like this one. Okay, they store fats, adipocytes, lipids. They store fatty components, which might be used as for insulation, simply by keeping our body warm, by cushioning, by coating our cells with fatty components. Okay, so adipocytes look like this one. Okay, like this. They also have the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Okay, moving forward, we have the elastic connective tissue. So it's made up of type 2 collagen, a component of a joint cartilage which contains retractile fibers with elastin components. Okay, which makes it elastic, which makes it stretchable. Okay, often found in the bronchi, trachea, blood vessels, and hollow organs, just like here in our veins and arteries, since they are capable of accepting a high pressured flow of the blood, or also they are capable of allowing the passage of the blood by the time we tend to curve our joints, when we tend to retract our joints, because if we retract our joints, there are chances that there will be a restriction of the blood flow. For the blood to continuously flow, veins needs to stretch, blood vessels need to stretch, so that blood flow can still take place and continuously flow all throughout the body, exchange materials, provide nourishment, so that our cells all throughout the body will still be healthy. Okay? Also, in the hollow organs, there are elastic connective tissues, just like in our lungs. Okay, as you noticed, as we inhale, our lungs expand. As we exhale, our lungs contract. Okay, as we inhale, our diaphragm tends to expand. As we exhale, our diaphragm tends to relax. Okay, those are usually made up of connective tissues, allowing it to change in structure, to stretch their structure to perform specific functions. Okay, so these are the connective tissue proper and the supportive connective tissues. Okay, so you will not be tracing this one. I just want you to familiarize the types of connective tissues, to what type of collagen they are made of, and to what's their location. Either they are found in our lungs, in our fat cells, in our bone marrow, or in our tendons, nails, hair, so on and so forth. Okay? For a while. Next, we have muscular tissues. Okay? So for our muscles, they usually shape our bodies and makes our bones move. Okay? They also support our body by protecting the organs. Okay? So for the muscular tissues, aside from shaping the body, supporting the bones, allowing it to move, protecting our organs, muscular tissues are also categorized into three types. Okay? The skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and the smooth muscles. Okay? So they are subcategorized into voluntary and involuntary. So talking about voluntary muscles, they are usually dictated by our conscious mind to move that particular part in our body. When we talk about involuntary muscles, these are usually the processes happening that needs to be done unconsciously. Okay? Just like the beating of our heart, just like the digesting of our food, just like the contracting and the relaxing, the expanding and the relaxing of our diaphragm as we inhale and exhale gaseous air. Okay? So, voluntary muscles are those that can be controlled by the nervous system, just like skeletal muscles attached to bones. For involuntary muscles, they are beyond the control of the nervous system that muscles of the digestive tube and the heart keeps on working. Either we are awake or we are sleeping, still they are continuously working. Okay. So muscular tissues are categorized into three types. Okay. First, we have the skeletal muscle. Okay. They usually move bones, move the body, of course with the help of the joints. Okay. Without joints, it can't move. Okay. Next, we have the cardiac muscles. Okay. Usually, they are made up of tough muscle components, which is designed in pumping blood, circulating it all throughout the body. And lastly, we have the smooth muscle. Okay. They are usually found in our excretory system, reproductive system, digestive system, respiratory system, and many more. Okay? Moving forward, let's discuss the types one by one. Okay, individually. Here we have the skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and the smooth muscles. For the skeletal muscles, they are made up of long cylindrical multinucleated cells capable of quick and forceful contractions, usually voluntary. Okay? So majority of the skeletal muscles are voluntary. Okay? Interactions of the thin and thick filaments make it possible for them to slide through each other during contractions, allowing them to move in a forceful manner. Okay, so these are the muscle fibers lining together, supporting the skeletal component, linking with muscles, then it can move forcefully in a forceful contraction. Okay, so just like in our hands, we have the carpals, we have the metacarpals, and the phalanges. Okay, so they can move simply because they are attached with skeletal muscles. Okay, allowing them to move voluntarily. Okay, next we have the cardiac muscles. They are made up of elongated, branched individual cells that are configured parallel to each other, capable of involuntary, vigorous, and rhythmic contractions. Okay, so when we say rhythmic contractions, it follows a specific pattern, just like a lub-dub mechanism, allowing our heart to beat in a rhythmic pattern. Of course, driven by the electrical impulses sent by our brain. Okay? Now, the cardiac muscles are in a branched appearance. Okay? Or in a branched. Here, as what you noticed, let's have the branching muna. Okay? So they are usually in a branched appearance. This allows them to become a tough cardiac muscle and move in a coordinated fashion, in a rhythmic fashion. Okay? Each cardiac muscle is linked together by the intercalated disc. Okay? So we have the intercalated disc linking one cardiac muscle to the other cardiac muscle. Okay? So as what you noticed here, we have our intercalated disc. Okay? So intercalated disc. Okay? Linking one cardiac muscle to the other cardiac muscle. Okay? So they are usually found in our heart, which is capable of performing rhythmic contractions. Okay? So they are also nucleated. As what you notice, there are nucleus within each cell, cardiac cell. Okay? Nucleus, 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 nucleus. Okay? So we have nucleus. These purplish dark, or we have a violet color. We have the appearance of the nucleus. Okay? Moving forward, let's have the smooth muscle. Okay? The last type of muscle tissue. Okay? They are made up of collections of cells that do not show cross striations. Okay? Unlike the cardiac muscle and the skeletal muscles, they have striations. When we talk about striations, there are parallel arrangement of muscles here. Okay? These are what we call striations, found in the skeletal muscles and in the cardiac muscles. Okay? So as we zoom it in, there are some parallel appearance or parallel structure there called striations, strengthening the muscle, allowing it to perform vigorous activities, heavy activities. Okay? So as what you notice, na siya mga striations there. Okay? Found in skeletal and cardiac muscles. Okay? Here, dili kayo klaro yung striations, but naa siya intercalated discs. Okay? So talking about smooth muscle, they do not show cross striations. And they are usually called fusiform shaped cells because they are usually largest at their midpoints and tapered at their ends. Okay, so it's what we call as fusiform shaped cells. Okay, so contraction process is slow and not subject to voluntary control, meaning they are involuntary, they are still working even though we are sleeping, or even though we are unconscious that they are already doing something. Okay, just like in our digestive tube, digestive muscles. Okay, so smooth muscle looks like this one, having a fusiform appearance. Okay, so let's try to look a fusiform shaped cell. Fusiform shaped cell, here we have. Okay, as what you noticed, it's quite wider at their midpoint, and their endpoint is usually tapered or thin. Okay, so having this structure here. Okay, it's usually tapered at their endpoint and quite wider at their midpoint. Okay, asa pa man eh. Dili man kay klaro. Anyway, here, this one. Okay, here as well. So this is what we call a fusiform shaped cell. Okay, found in our smooth muscle. Okay, and to recall the types of muscular tissues, we have skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and the smooth muscles. Okay, that's it for the muscular tissues. Moving forward, we have the nervous tissue. Okay, so they are usually made up of specialized nerve cells capable of receiving and producing nerve impulses, which is a signal sent by the brain to respond to a particular stimulus. These tissues are usually found in the brain and in the spinal cord, except for the cytoplasmic extensions like the axons, which form the nerves outside of the central nervous system. Okay, so the individual cells of the brain and the spinal cord are usually called neurons or nerve cells. Okay, you can use neurons, you can use nerve cells, they are just the same. Okay, moving forward, a nerve cell looks like this one. Okay, so here, as what you notice, there is a nucleus in between. Okay, and it is protected by a wide cell body. Okay, so here we have the nucleus, protected by a, or surrounded by a cell body. We have dendrites, we have the axon. This is the axon. Axon, 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 axon. Actually, this one here is an axon. Everything is an axon here. But it is being coated by a myelin sheath. When we say myelin sheath, it usually insulates or coats the axon so that the nerve impulses being sent or received can travel faster. Okay, so here we have the basic component of a nerve cell. So we have the cell body containing the nucleus. We have the dendrite. These are the projections, branching projections in the soma, and also we have the tail called the axon. At the tip of the axon, we have the axon terminal, and a layer which coats the axon is called myelin sheath. Okay, so it's what we call as myelin sheath. Moving forward, here the axon tends to send signal coming from the soma towards the axon into the axon terminal, proceeding to the dendrite of the other nerve cell. So let's say, for instance, this is nerve cell A, nerve cell B, and nerve cell C. Okay, so nerve cell A, let's say for instance the dendrite and the cell body is here, and here is its axon. So cell A from its dendrite receives an information. So the cell body will interpret those information and pass it on to another nerve cell through its axon. Okay? Moving forward, until such time, it will travel through the efferent neuron. Okay, these are usually found in our organs. Okay, in our reacting organs. Okay, efferent. Okay, asam to siya. Okay, here, efferent, which will allow us to act or to react in a certain event. Okay, so let's say for instance, nerve cell A receives an information and sends it to nerve cell B to nerve cell C. Until such time, it arrives at the efferent neurons. Okay, so these neurons are usually the effector neurons, which allows us to act on something. Let's say for instance, by the time we sensed a hot object, okay, so our nerve cells, with just a split of a second, sends the information to our brain, realizing that it's very hot, sending the information back again to our hands, instructing it to move it away, or else you might be burnt, okay, by the object. Okay, let's say for instance, we are holding a kettle filled with newly boiled water. Okay, by the time we touch the surface of the kettle, our hands will send information to the brain, and the brain will tell to our hands that it's hot, so you need to remove your hands from the newly boiled water in the kettle. Okay, that's it. That's the way of our body protecting itself. Okay, and that's how fast nerves acquire information and reacting to it. Okay, thanks to our nerve cells. Moving forward, there are different types of neurons. Okay, so we have the sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Okay, talking about sensory neurons, they carry information obtained from the interior of the body and the environment to the central nervous system. They are usually the afferent neurons, okay, that receive information from our sensory organs. Let's say, for instance, eye, skin, tongue, nose, ears, and other senses, okay, and transmit this input to the central nervous system are called afferent neurons. It's affecting us. Because it's affecting us, we need to do something. As we do something, here comes the motor neurons, okay, allowing us to react to a particular stimulus based on the instructions given by the central nervous system. So motor neurons carry impulses from the central nervous system to the effector organs commanded by these centers, okay? Neurons that send impulses from the central nervous system to your limbs and organs are called the efferent neurons. So let me give you an example. Okay, so there are different stimulus in our environment. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you have noticed that you are in a, let's say, for instance, garage, and as you walked, you stepped on a nail which is attached in a wood, okay, protruding, tending to pierce your shoes and your foot. So here, the stimulus is the nail in the environment, and you are hurt by that as you step it. So the receptor or the afferent neuron will send information to your brain that you stepped on that protruding nail. So you felt it. You felt hurt. Okay? Then your sensory neuron will send it to your central nervous system, to your brain, and your brain will interpret it that you need to remove your foot on that particular area as it is already hurt to prevent it from worsening. So, from the central nervous system, it will send information to the motor neuron, or also called as the efferent neuron, into the reacting organ or senses enabling you to remove your foot from that protruding nail to prevent further pain, to prevent further damage on your foot. And your response is you tend to step away your foot and later on cure it. You wash it, you put medication for it to stop bleeding. Okay, so that's what we call as the receptor, wherein it senses information from the environment. So receptor could be our senses, just like our eyes, our skin, feeling, sensing the environment, seeing the environment, feeling the environment. Okay. Another example, let's have a fire outbreak, which is in the environment. So, let's say, for instance, there you are experiencing simbako, okay? you're experiencing a fire outbreak at home. So your eyes see the fire, your skin felt a rising temperature, your nose smelling burnt objects, your ears seeing you're seeing sorry hearing um, burning sounds or explosion coming from the fire outbreak. Okay, moving forward. Moving forward, let's say for instance, fire, that stimulus, was being sensed by your receptor organs. So, your sensory neuron or the afferent neuron tends to send the information to your brain so that it can process what certain reaction you will do. So we have the efferent neurons. Okay, what will be its effect? Either you will run, you will put water on the burning objects, or you will save the important documents. Okay, it's up to you. So the efferent neurons or the motor neuron will send signal to your eyes again, to your skin, to your nose, to your ears, allowing you to realize that there is a fire outbreak. Okay? Of course, it will happen with just a split of a second, even lesser than a second. So that's how fast our processor is. That's how fast our central nervous system is. Okay? Our brain is. Also the spinal cord. Okay? So the afferent will acquire information from the environment, the brain will interpret it, and the efferent will allow you to react to that certain stimulus, allowing you to respond to that certain stimulus. Okay? So those are the different types of neurons, the sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Okay? So this is under the nervous tissue, sending series of impulses, allowing our body to interact to its environment. Okay? Moving forward, we have all covered the different types of tissues in animal. So to review, we have connective tissues, epithelial tissues, muscle tissues, and the nervous tissues. Now let's proceed to plant tissues. Okay, so plant tissues are different from animal tissues as they are categorized into meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Talking about meristematic tissues, they are responsible for the growth of the shoot system and for the growth of the root system. Okay, so Meristematic tissues allows the plant to grow upwards, to grow downwards, and to grow sidewards. Okay? For the permanent tissues, we have the sclerenchyma, collenchyma, and parenchyma. They support the plant, allowing it to provide food, water, and protection. Okay? So moving forward, let's go first with the types. Meristematic is also called as embryonic tissue, but usually we use the meristematic tissue. And we also have the non-meristematic tissue. They can be termed as permanent tissue. So what's the difference between meristematic and non-meristematic tissue? Talking about meristematic or embryonic, these tissues have the dividing capacity, allowing the plant to develop and grow. Okay? So immature and help plants to divide continuously. So regarding with its immature component, time is very important for the plant to grow and develop. Okay? Meristematic tissue is categorized into apical, lateral, intercalary meristems. Okay? So, what's the difference between apical, lateral, and intercalary meristems? For the apical meristem, they are usually found at the tip of the shoot and root system, which increases the length as apical meristems produce new cells, either upwards or the downward growth of the plant. Okay? For the intercalary meristems, they are found at the vicinity of the nodes, which occurs at the intervals along stems. Okay? So, they are the growth system happening in between the leaves of a plant. Okay? So, that's how fast plants can grow because they have different growth mechanism. For the lateral meristem, they increase the girth or the diameter of plants, and they are found along the sides of some roots and stems. Okay? So for the lateral meristems, they function for the sideward growth of the plants. Na ay upward growth, apical and intercalary. Na po sideward growth, which is lateral and also with the help of intercalary. So it looks like this one. So we have the meristematic tissues. Okay? So here we have the apical meristem. Apical meristem. Next, we have the intercalary meristem. Okay? Happening in between nodes. Okay? Naa diri ang intercalary meristem. Okay? Intercalary. And lastly, here, sidewards growth, okay? We have this portion here. This one, okay? Coating around, surrounding the plant, okay? Coating around the plant, okay? This is what we call as lateral meristem. Okay, so the lateral meristem tends to surround the stem or tends to surround the plant body, allowing it to grow sidewards by increasing its girth or diameter. Okay, so this is the lateral meristem. Moving forward, When we say meristem, meristematic tissues, they are responsible for growth and development. Okay? For the non-meristematic or the permanent tissues, they are usually the derivative of meristematic tissue. Okay? They do not have the dividing capacity, but they function in the conduction of substances such as water and food. Okay? So there are types of meristematic, or there are types of non-meristematic tissues. Okay? These are the simple and the complex non-meristematic tissue, or the simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. For the simple permanent tissue, we have the parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. For the complex, we have the xylem and phloem. I want you to remember that xylem is responsible for the conducting of water molecules from the root system to the shoot system. Phloem is responsible in conducting food, okay, from the leaf, which is a product of photosynthesis wherein they produce glucose or starch. It also gets circulated all throughout the plant body simply because of the complex tissue phloem. Okay, so from the word phloem, pH sounds F. Okay, so pH sounds F. So it's easy for you to remember that phloem is responsible for the conduction of food. Okay, pH sounds F, wherein it is responsible in conducting, in distributing food molecules all throughout the plant body. Okay, and lastly, talking about the simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue, I want you to keep this in mind. For sclerenchyma, it is consists of dead cells, okay, usually found at the bark of the plants. Okay, the hard covering bark of the trunk, okay, which prevents water loss and also providing support. Okay, collenchyma are also made up of tough cells, and they are mainly for support. And lastly, for parenchyma, these are specialized cells that carry out metabolism as they contain chloroplast, and photosynthesis usually takes place in this particular portion because they are made up of specialized cell capable of performing metabolism, performing photosynthesis, simply because of the presence of the chloroplast. Okay, so sclerenchyma support, collenchyma support, but they are live cells for the collenchyma. Sclerenchyma support, but they are dead cells. Collenchyma support living cells. Parenchyma, there is the presence of chloroplast allowing photosynthesis to take place. For the phloem, they transport food molecules such as sugars and other minerals. For the xylem, they transport water and other minerals, okay, through the plant system. So that's the difference between plant tissues and animal tissues. So for the meristematic tissues, we have the apical meristem for the upward and the downward growth. Next, we have the internode of the intercalary meristem for the growth of plants in between. And for the lateral meristem, it's for the sideward growth of the plants. Permanent tissues, they tend to support the plants. Sclerenchyma, made up of dead cells, capable of supporting the plants, coating its body, preventing water loss. Collenchyma, capable of supporting the plants, which is also made for support. Parenchyma, which is consist of chloroplast, wherein metabolism takes place here, wherein photosynthesis takes place here. For the xylem and phloem, their main function is for the transport of food and water, which will keep the plants alive. Okay, so that's it for the animal tissues and plant tissues. Now, for the continuation of this topic, I want you to study cell modifications because I will include it in our midterm exam, which will be by tomorrow. Okay, so that ends my discussion. I hope you have learned something new today. Thank you everyone for being around, and good luck with your midterm exam. Stay safe, God bless, and bye bye.